Welcome to Lead Brightly. I'm Sarah Farmer, your host, and I'm delighted to be joined by the fabulous Alan Dunbar today. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Alan before we get stuck into our conversation. So Alan started his career as an aircraft engineer in the Royal Navy, where he spent 13 years learning what real leadership is all about, especially under pressure. Those early days have shaped the way he thinks about tasks, people, and teamwork, long before he ever had a formal leadership title. After leaving the military, he stayed in aviation, moving into flight test engineering, and then into commercial roles across major aerospace organizations, including Meggitt, GKN Aerospace, and Cobham. Each move pushed him into new territories and gave him a front row seat to very different leadership styles, which I can't wait to get into, which we're going to describe as the good, the bad, and the I'll never do it that way. Over the years, he's grown into senior leadership roles across the aerospace sector. And today, as president of Dalcom Engineering, Alan still draws on the same principles he learned early on. Look after people, stay adaptable, and lead with humility. Alan, welcome to the show. And thank you so much for agreeing to chat to me today about the relationship between leadership and confidence.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, the first question I have for you then is around leading brightly. What does it mean to you? What does it involve, do you think, to lead brightly?
It's not actually about getting everything right and skipping through life, high-fiving everybody and being the most popular guy in the room. That's easy, but a bit superficial. There's a lot of nice guys out there who can't lead and a lot of nice ladies out there who can't lead.
Good point.
I think for me, leading brightly is accepting your own fallibility and accepting that you're not going to get it right all of the time, but still having the confidence and the trust in the team around you, because let's be honest about it, none of us are anything without our teams.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think being able to have that trust in your team and the confidence to know that, you know, you're going to get it right most of the time, or when I say right, I think most of the time you're driving in the right direction. You stay a positive step forward, you know,
Yes.
so...
Yeah.
And I think leading brightly is all about getting comfortable with that.
So getting comfortable with occasionally being uncomfortable and being okay with not being right or not knowing at all, which is very much down to the confidence side of things. So yeah, I love all that. Now one could assume looking at your CV and reading your bio that you've just stormed through to where you are now. You know, you've done amazing things and you're now, one could say, your pinnacle. Maybe not. Maybe there's more to go. Who knows? So is it fair to assume that you have never yourself been a victim of low confidence issues? Or is that a fallacy that what we look at isn't always what we see?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that, isn't it? What you see and what's reality are two different things. What goes on behind the scenes, and no, you said I appear to have stormed through my career. No, I haven't. I've had setbacks like everybody else, but the key thing is how you deal with those setbacks. And there are two things: it can become destructive, or it can be a fuel. And depending how you're able to process that, really depends on whether it is destructive or fuel, I think.
Yeah, completely. And for full transparency, I'm going to just let the audience know that I've worked with you on and off now for sort of 4 or 5 years, so I know you quite well, and I know that there's been ups and downs. And one of the major downs is when COVID hit, and a lot of really good senior leaders are losing their jobs. And what I really liked from you at that point was you weren't afraid to ask for help. You weren't afraid to come in and get the support that you needed. Because a lot of people think they should just be able to power through and know it all. And that can have way more damage, can't it, than actually getting the help that you need or looking for support.
Absolutely, because the COVID's a great example, because that was something I remember talking to my then CEO about it when it happened, and I said to him, this is really, really difficult in terms of when we just got into lockdown, and I was the MD of a fairly big aerospace organization at the time, and the chief executive said to me, "Well, look at it this way, Alan. Nobody's going to tell you you're wrong, because nobody's ever done this before." And that was sort of a confidence boost. Still didn't help the fact that I hadn't a clue. Going to do from one day to the next, much like many of us. But again, at that point, I had a pretty good team, and we were able to quickly establish those open dialogue points, and because we trusted each other, we managed to figure out a way through it and figure out a way around the obstacles like working from home and all those types of things.
It was a nightmare time, absolute nightmare time. And, there was no precedent. There was no, this is how we do it. There was no rule book on how to. Did you find it easier not to have a rule book then? Obviously, it sounds like you had the support from your boss, which is great. Go ahead and do it. No one knows what's right or wrong. Or did it add to the pressure of there not being a right? You do step one, then we go here, then we go there.
I preferred it. I was quite happy with it. But then, maybe I come from a background of not just the military. I've spent a lot of years in sales, and us salespeople are usually quite adept at dealing with ambiguity.
Mm.
It's almost a natural hunting ground for a lot of salespeople. So, it's what one of my chief executives would say. Yeah, that's because you guys like to dodge data. But it's
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
but yeah, exactly. But no, I think your ability to navigate ambiguity is a big thing. And I do remember at the time, we used to talk about ambiguity and uncertainty, and we thought we knew what that meant. And but back in those days, ambiguity and uncertainty was whether or not Airbus were going to adjust their build rates in the second half of the year. How many engines Rolls-Royce were going to build in a year. That was the extent of it. And then all of a sudden, bang, everybody's doors are shut. Nobody's trading. You can't even be within a couple of meters of each other. Now what are you going to do? So that was a bit of a reset really in the whole thing.
Yeah. It was a very, very difficult time for everybody. I mean, I remember going through the experience, and all my business just dropped completely, and I was left with nothing, and like you, with that sales mindset, and quite a bloody minded mindset. I was like, this isn't going to beat me. I'm going to do something. I quite liked the idea of something new and the space to go and explore in. But I think a lot of people, it floored, and especially those who ended up losing their roles eventually, been through a hard time. And then what was going to happen? There was a mass amount of people at senior levels looking for roles, and it all got a little bit twitchy for a while, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was one of them. My role ended up disappearing, but yeah, you're right. It was very twitchy because before, I referred to earlier, the acronym VUCA was the term of the day, especially in the aerospace industry, and it was volatility and uncertainty. And as I said to you, really wasn't. And when the pandemic hit after a couple of months, you basically took that definition of VUCA and ripped it up and threw it away, and it completely. But that's had a lasting reset on a lot of businesses and a lot of people today. Yeah. Even today, it's still having an impact on us with working from home and those attitudes to workplace, and that in itself brings its own leadership challenges, as we know, as we've discussed. So yeah, it was
interesting, and it's just reminding me. Actually, I'd never heard of VUCA, and I just say VUCA. Not by the way, then.
You did, yeah. There was
I am known to swear, but I did say VUCA. I'd never heard of that until I spoke to you the first time. And I remember thinking, I must pretend I know what it is. And then you just spelled it out for me. I was like, oh yeah, I'm that. I get it. So thank you for educating me all those years ago. So I do want to go into the good, the bad, and the I'll never do it that way. And I'd love to see in those cases, let's start with the good. Let's start with the good stuff is, how much of a part does self-confidence, self-belief, and emotional intelligence play in the ability for someone to be the type of person or the type of leader that we describe as good?
I think also it plays a huge part. But as we know, there are a number of different facets to the whole emotional intelligence piece. And one of the facets that is sometimes overused is that social awareness, and people think they know their teams, they think they know people, they think they know their environment better than they do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes self-awareness is one that's left lacking. And we've seen that a few times, and I'd be lying if I sat here and said that I haven't been guilty of it from time to time. If you're aware of it, you can at least recognize it. But yeah, it is one of the challenges. And I think a lot of people profess to be very emotionally intelligent, and they'll tell you what their EI score is because they've done an online test. But to me, the gauge of emotional intelligence is actually demonstrated in your behaviors from day to day.
And not having to tell someone that you're emotionally intelligent.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And just because you listen to everyone, and just because you're seen to listen to everyone, and just because you let everyone do what they like and you empower everybody, that doesn't actually make you emotionally intelligent. Sometimes that just means you're abdicating your own duties as a leader.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I think there's one of the things I see quite often is that a lot of leaders don't get their own development seen to. It's just not seen as a priority. It's difficult to fit it in. It's difficult to work around it. There isn't the budget for that. We want to train the people who are on the ground doing the groundwork stuff because that seems to be more important. But when we miss out on developing the people at the top down, that has a huge impact because we are then missing the emotional intelligence to lead with inspiration, set meaningful goals for the people that are directly beneath us or working with us in our team. Shouldn't say beneath us, that's awful, but alongside us. And then the people on the ground get hit in some shape or form anyway.
Yeah, and there's a couple of ways of looking at it, and you kind of sort of touched on something there, because what is the point in investing in continuous improvement training for your production teams? What was the point in investing in 5S, 6S, whatever continuous improvement flavor you choose, and then not investing in the capability of your leadership and your management team? Because ultimately, as we know, sometimes people find themselves accidental managers, as a term we know very well indeed. And simply putting people in a management position, giving them the management title, we all know that doesn't necessarily work. And therefore, there is that need for investment in your people. You just have to.
Yes.
The two are not mutually exclusive, and you just can't have one without the other. I don't think, anyway.
No, well, obviously, I agree with you. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a business. But there's a lot of people that still believe that leadership is inherent. It's an innate thing. You can either do it or you can't. I personally disagree with that because it's a very low percentage of people who are natural leaders. Now, because of the background you've got in the military and having that sort of training, you probably have more. You learned earlier than most people would have done. You're in a situation where you couldn't have poor leadership because people would die. That's the highest stakes you can have. But what are your thoughts on it? Can you teach anybody to be a great leader? And by that, I mean one that can lead brightly with the right level of confidence, emotional intelligence, and resilience to inspire other people.
Yeah, I think you can, but I think somewhere in each of us there has to be that inherent drive to want to lead somewhere. Whether it's natural, you have to make the commitment to yourself, ultimately to those around you, that you are going to lead. And it's leadership takes on a number of different guises, and we've talked to us before, and we can go back in time, where you had the command and control leadership was the style of the day back in the 70s and the 80s, and then we sort of moved forward and everybody decided that transformational leadership was the way to go. The standard bearer at the front, follow me, troops, I've got a great plan. And then somewhere along the line, we got more emotionally intelligent. We became more self-aware. We became more aware of our surroundings and the need to be adaptable. And ultimately, there is no one fixed leadership style that works all of the time in all of the situations. And so by that very nature, it's not possible to be born a leader, I don't think.
Actually, it's a really good point, because you'd have to be born a really versatile leader to be a great leader. So you could be born to be a command and control leader, but that isn't a leader that we want 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Today, in today's world, we need it when, the shit's hitting the fan. So yeah, that's a really good point. So going back to sort of the good leaders, when you have what you describe as a good leader, what does that look like for you, and how does that help you develop your confidence in yourself? And what difference, I'm asking so many questions in one go, what difference that made to your effectiveness? Because I want to try and help people see throughout this podcast and everything else that I do, the link between our ability to perform and be effective with not just the environment, but what's going on in here as well. So how does the environment affect that? And what about the leaders that have helped you do that so you could be effective?
I mean, I've been lucky enough to work for quite a few different leaders. All of whom I hasten to add had something positive in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
They've had a positive impact on my career. But I sort of go back to the very first observation I had, or the very first impactful moment in my career. And I was a young apprentice, and yes, I was young once. Let's not go there.
We all were once.
I was an apprentice aircraft engineer, and it was 1988. So it was obviously quite a long time ago. But I worked on a search and rescue squadron in the Navy, and we had this manager, this what we call the watch chief. He was in charge of the engineers, chief engineer, a guy called Paul Doyle, and Paul was a calm, unassuming fellow. He didn't, he wasn't in the bar every night. He was quite calm and just effective and organized. And I remember one evening during the summer of that year, we were on search and rescue duty, and the search and rescue alarm went off. And as usual, we're expecting a lost American yachtsman getting lost around the Scottish Islands or something.
Yeah.
And it turned out it was the Piper Alpha oil rig explosion. So all of a sudden, we had a lot of pressure, and we were being asked to provide as many aircraft as we possibly could. Well, we had 2 that were flyable and 4 that were busted.
Oh.
So Paul immediately took charge of the situation and stuck true to his organizational style, and never ever became emotionally involved, except to say, we know this is going to be a long night, so let's get everyone up, get everyone out of bed, including the chefs. Get the chefs up, get some food on, get some tea and coffee on. Let's get to work, and let's understand what we have to do. And that quickly translated from a rescue operation, because we were a good sort of 3 hours flying time at least away from Piper Alpha.
Right.
So at that time, everybody was in the water, and it was really difficult. There was the RAF were involved, and really leading the rescue. But pretty quickly, it turned from a rescue operation to a recovery operation, because we knew that they weren't going to make it. And that changed the mindset of everybody in the organization. It really put a great weight on everybody's shoulders.
Yeah.
And again, Paul came out, remained calm, spoke to us, took care to understand, is everybody okay? We know what's going on. We don't have all the facts. We've only got reports that are coming in from aircraft on the scene, from ships on the scene. Let's not react to this. Let's focus on what we have to do.
Mm.
Are you okay? And that was the one question he kept asking everybody. Are you okay? I have no idea how he was feeling, because he was in charge of it, and there was
yeah
working that night. But so that was something that stuck with me all my life. Was in the face of absolute crisis, that guy was methodical. He dealt in facts. He dealt in
so calm as well.
Yeah, didn't get emotionally involved. Didn't emotionally react to anything.
Yeah,
but used everybody else, checking on everybody else, making sure everyone was okay, making sure everyone had anything. Have you had a break? Have you had something to eat? Do you need a cup of tea?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Back in those days, as you know, we didn't think about mental health. We just got on with it because it was the 1980s, But nevertheless, he was ahead of his time. And then afterwards, he also led a what could we do better operation and exercise. And again, we were going through it at the time, and I remember we were doing the analysis and the follow-ups and thinking, well, it's not like that's going to ever happen again. And but we played along, and they came up with the squadron came up with this new method of operations in such extreme emergencies. And then 5 months later, somebody blew a Pan American 747 out of the sky over Lockerbie. And it did happen again. Exactly the same thing happened again. And the same guy was on duty. The same team was on duty. But that time around, it was, despite the fact that we knew an airliner had come down, it was easier to deal with, which might sound strange, but we'd gone through that before.
Yeah. So you had some level of expectation, at least this time.
We did. We'd done the reflective piece. We understood what had gone on. We understood why we were feeling the way we were feeling, and it was okay to feel like that. But ultimately, we were servicemen, so get on with it.
Yeah. We put on a brave face, and off you go.
Yeah, but it was a great example of when you think you're dealing with something that will never happen again. And I bring that all the way forward to the pandemic.
Yeah.
we dealt with the pandemic and we managed our way through it. Great. That'll never happen again. Be careful.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
You just don't know, do you?
Yeah.
I mean, I was really gobsmacked when you said that you then did a review of it in the 1980s.
80s, yeah.
I mean, I wish that was happening regularly now, and we're way beyond the 1980s. I mean, that's really ahead of time. But I guess that's where a lot of our learning in the world today, in organizations across the world, is looking back at what happened in your situations anywhere, sort of military style operations where they've gone wrong, because you guys were doing it right as much as you could do, but you were also very conscious of making sure it went right. It went even better next time. And I don't see that. I mean, I don't see that in the world that I work in enough.
And that's the point. Enough. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you're correct in as much that Paul at the time was incredibly forward thinking. But you have to remember that in the modern environment, especially in the world of manufacturing, but the modern workplace environment is much more fluid and much more dynamic than it used to be. We have, from an employee level, and I class all of us as employees, we have a different set of expectations in the workplace today compared to what we might have done 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So that in itself brings the challenge of leadership slightly differently. Mm-hmm. Thus, the adaptability and what I was saying earlier about, nobody's going to be born to lead all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But what it also brings through that different expectation is different positive outcomes and different negative outcomes. You just can't see, everything is new.
Yeah.
We always have to, we're always adapting, we're always improving because we have to, because we operate in a world now that is changing much more rapidly than it ever did. The world around us is changing much more rapidly than it ever did.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a consequence. So maybe we don't identify and segment out reflection, but the way we're continually adapting to the ever-changing world, I would argue that
we are reflecting that.
We must do subconsciously, if nothing else, and we must be perhaps on a smaller bite-sized scale.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, and it would be nice if we could do a bit more reflection. And I mean, on the big stuff, people are noticing that their cheese is moving, and that they are reflecting on that. And how do we keep up with the new, AI onslaught and everything else? But when it comes down to human behavior, and how we're responding to those changes, that's not what is necessarily looked at enough. And when we realize that everything we do, the big changes, the AI changes, whatever it is, they all start in here. So that's, I guess, is my bugbear, is that people don't look inside here enough first before they start making those big decisions. But I think what you're saying is absolutely fair. There has to be a lot more reflection. Is it on the things that I want people to reflect on all the time? No. It's on other stuff, but everything has to have a priority order, isn't it? I suppose.
I mean, if you think about it, Sarah, one of the common themes I often hear is resilience. Resilience, especially among young people. We do like to, or people like to complain that young people are not as resilient as and mentally resilient or physically as resilient as we used to be. And my answer to that is always, hang on, look at the rate of change they're coping with. Look at the social and the work environment that they exist in. The environment we existed in didn't have mobile telephones. We didn't have social media. The biggest change we had was we went from 3 television channels to 4.
Cool. That was exciting.
That was as if somebody had invented another moon. So.
But you had to get up and go and press the button on the telly to change the channel as well. I mean, I'm nearly as old as you. I do remember it.
Exactly. But it's so you have to, I think it's much more challenging.
I do.
Much more difficult to actually be resilient in today's modern world.
I completely agree with you. And we've got kids. We've talked about the challenges that our kids have got, and I know both of mine would have massively benefited from never having social media. I absolutely know that. It has wrecked their confidence. Absolutely wrecked their confidence. But that's work in progress. So the story you just told, which was amazing, and it really helps bring to light how a leader can help calm and give you the confidence to do your job effectively, even in the most horrific circumstances. And that sounds utterly horrific. And I can't even begin to imagine how hard that is, one, to do, but then also to deal with afterwards. It's always there. It's images you're never going to not see. So what about when you've been put in a position where someone has rocked you, where they've made you uncomfortable, where they've made you lack self-belief, lack confidence? What have you got an example of that? Or if you don't want to go into a specific example, what's the impact of it?
Again, I think it really depends on how that's presented to you, that confidence rock. And I've been fortunate enough to experience both examples. So one is a confidence rock with no substance or no detail, no understanding behind it. And the other one is really more of challenge, where you are left, you're facing questions, you're facing a situation where you're thinking, I really don't have the answer to this. But the person that you're working with, or your boss at the time, is actually taking an approach, which is, I'm going to help you through this. I'm going to help you find the right answer.
And then you don't feel quite so exposed.
It is. And I was in one situation where I ended up leaving the organization, and really it was because of conflict without data, or conflict without a full rationale, without an explanation, or without any attempts to resolve and understand several people's points of view. It was simply a style that was, okay, this isn't going to work. I thought it would. My little science experiment hasn't worked out, so we're going to make a change, and guess what? And that then leaves you questioning so many open questions about, well, what could I have done different? Because ultimately that's the first place we go, isn't it? It's my fault. What have I done?
What did I? Well, I mean, I agree with you. That's what I do. But I actually have realized over the years it isn't what all people do at all. Some people will remain stuck in, it was their fault, they did it all. So there's a nice bit in the middle where we can look at both sides. But I'm like you, I go straight to, what did I do wrong? Always happen there. Bit of imposter syndrome in there, possibly. It must be my fault. I've never fitted in, all of that stuff. But then there are people who don't even look at anything they did at all, and it's everyone else's fault. But
yeah, and that's a good point with the imposter syndrome. As you know, I used to think I was the dumbest person in the room, and everybody else was smarter than me. So I went.
No, you're right.
And I went and did an MBA to prove to myself that, hang on, I'll get an MBA and then I'll be brainy like else. I'll know all the answers.
Did it change? Did it change it? And I was kidding when I said you were right. Let's scrub that out of there.
No, leave it in. Leave it in.
I've known you long enough, I think, to tease a little. But and again, back to when I first met you, I thought you were so intelligent. I mean, I'm not saying you're not, but you came across, and because you were doing your MBA and you were talking about VUCA and all of that, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's really bright. But you thought I was really clever because I was writing a book or something. And bizarrely, neither of us deep down believed that we were that clever or that bright at all.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. But then that came from a position of self-doubt. That came from a set of circumstances that both led us to a point in time. And, you, as I said, questioning self.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that's one of those areas where sometimes I think an understanding of emotional intelligence is a double-edged sword, because it can be very negative when you, if you overplay some of the facets of it, especially understanding self. If you start out with a mindset being undermined, and you've got underlying sort of, let's call it imposter syndrome. But if there's an event that triggers that, and then you start, you're relying on your emotional intelligence skills and capabilities, sometimes you can go way down the wrong road too far.
You can. It can be a rabbit warren. So can you be too self-aware?
I'm not sure you can be too self-aware, but I think you can spend too much time in not balancing and not stepping back self-awareness is great, but as with all situations,
Yeah.
you have to step back and be able to step back. And as we know, sometimes we will commit our thoughts to paper, or, jot it down on digital media or whatever. But it's then being able to walk away and switch off. And it wasn't even a leader that said to me, it was one of a great friend of mine, who I still work with today. He said to me, he said, Alan, use this period, go and play golf, go for a walk every day.
Yeah.
While you're in between jobs, go for a walk every day, clear your head. Don't sit there and don't analyze everything and apply for 15,000 jobs every day. Just don't do it. Right job will find you. And he was absolutely right. Absolutely right with that. I ignored him. I didn't. I actually did go down a rabbit warren for a while of analysis, which led me to you. But nevertheless, I still reflect on that and think, do you know what, Pete, you were right.
Well, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? And I think when we talk about having too much or too little self-awareness, it isn't, when we talk about too much self-awareness, it isn't about having too much self-awareness. It's having a lack of emotional self-control to know when to stop it, isn't it? So it's the second part of emotional intelligence. I can see what I'm doing, but then can I control when I actually need to do it or not? So I don't overanalyze myself and go down those rabbit warrens. So going back to, because I think I distracted you slightly, but going back to the people that have rocked you, not in a good way, and affected your confidence, what does that do to your ability to perform and to do what you need to do? Because I think it's really important for people to understand, who are maybe listening to this and thinking, what do you mean? Why would it affect how someone performs? And it's worth noting that the neuroscience behind this is really clear, is that if we're feeling fear in any shape or form, we are not able to show up and shine like we want to. So if you think of someone in an interview who sits there before an interview going, I mustn't say this. What if I forget that? They're going to think I'm too old, too young, too this, too that. Your brain cannot perform the way you want it to, which is eloquently, confidently, calmly, giving off that trust that somebody needs to feel from you to want to hire you. So what was your experience when you have been in a relationship with a leader that was less effective for you?
Well put. It's very, very demotivating in terms of your performance. It absolutely decimates it. And it's easy to quantify or make an objective view of that, because I go back to, there's usually very little fact, data, context, discussion, understanding, reflection. You usually find with less effective leaders, as you put it, they lack those types of areas. They lack empathy. There's no, as the great Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand. There's never any of that. It's I've made my decision, and this is how I see the world. Therefore, bang. And some of the best guys I've worked for, just they don't do that. They have that ability, that mindset to go the other way and flip the other switch. And I think that's what it is. It's not really about it's all your fault, or it's not really about I'm going to put you under pressure because if you don't perform better, there's the great one, isn't it? If you don't perform better, we're going to have to take action. Okay, what does performing better look like?
Yeah. And is it what I'm doing, or is it how I'm doing it? And is it the environment that I'm in that is stopping me from enjoying being able to do it, that's affecting how I do it?
Absolutely. But then the other side of that, I remember I'd been the sales director at a small engineering firm, and I got this bigger job with a big international organization as a sales director. And again, it was, wow, everybody's going to be smarter than me at this great big company. And so I showed up, settled into the job, and I was, as like everybody else, I'm on a 6-month probationary period, and I'm doing my best. I'm doing what I know, and I'm going about my job the way I've always done it, the way I've learned it. And then about 3 months in, I had a one-to-one with my managing director at the time, and he won't mind if I name a guy called Damon Harvey. And Damon was a real action-focused leader. He was quite a character. But I remember going to Damon and said, Damon, midway through my probationary period, I said, just can I get some feedback on, is there things I'm not doing that you would like me to do, or I'm doing things that you don't want me to do, or, give me some feedback how I'm doing. And he said, listen, son, I hired you. You are going to be successful. Now, don't you worry about it. You just get out there and you just do what you do. You're great. You'll be brilliant. And I walked out of his office that day and I was like, wow, nobody's ever said that, in my life. No leader, manager has ever come.
Is that great feedback? I mean, yes, it makes you feel good, but is it great feedback?
There was no context to it. There was no detail to it. Look, other than to say, yeah, what you're doing is great, son. You just keep doing it.
Doing it, yeah. Okay.
Well, that's okay, because I know what I'm doing, and I'm doing things the way I think they should be done, and winning business, and that's great. But he was just, yeah, I'm backing you. I brought you in here. I think you're doing great. I know what you're doing. We talk about it every week in meetings. So just keep doing it.
I mean, fair enough. I think if everybody could at least have that feedback occasionally, that would be great. And if they could have feedback where it actually says, this is exactly what you're doing, that is great. But also, let's have a look at things. I mean, let's explore, because you talk about the world changing so fast, everything's moving on so fast. If we keep going with that attitude that, oh, you're doing great, we're not looking at how can we do something differently next time, even if it was already good, could it be even better? But I guess that's taking leadership to another level. I don't know how many people are even at the level where they're giving feedback properly yet.
But I think he was very, very insightful at that point, because it wasn't about the sales we were winning or not winning or anything like that, or how I was behaving with my team. That was all about, I'd walked into his office asking for feedback. I'd referred to the fact that I was midway through my probationary period. He has instantly gone, oh, I can see this is playing on your mind. Let me just kill this one for you right now.
Yeah. It was what you needed at the time then.
Yeah. It was absolutely pinpoint at that time, and it was a great reaction. But off the back of that gave me the confidence to be able to talk to him, to be able to go and have a really great working relationship with him, so that we were able to deal with the good and the bad, and navigate our way through it, talk about the challenges that we had in front of us, and talk about how we're going to deal with them, and some of the external challenges as well as the internal. So it was a real trigger point. And sometimes it's only a small trigger point like that, yes, it puts a spring in your step for 5 minutes. But
the knock-on effect's huge, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You mentioned that when you'd had the less effective leaders in your life, that it had a really big impact on you, and it affected your productivity, your performance. What was the first thing you noticed that lowers, that drops? What do you because I'm just wondering if people even realize that their confidence is being affected. So what would you say is something to look out for? Where did you notice it? Was it in your thinking? Was it how you felt? Can you remember?
Yeah, it was. I think the first thing is, everybody, when you receive sort of unconstructive negative feedback, whatever, it's easy to go looking for the step change, that thing that's suddenly going to make it all right. There is no one thing that's suddenly going to make it all right. But if you retract into a position where I've got to be brilliant, but I don't know what brilliant looks like, what you find is you end up working harder and harder and convincing yourself you're achieving less and less, because you're not getting that, hey, you're a superstar.
Yeah. So then we've got the risk of burnout happening.
So you've got burnout, you've got tiredness, you're not sleeping well.
Yeah.
You're invariably, your diet goes to hell.
Yeah.
You're drinking too much of the wrong stuff, Red Bull, coffee, whatever other brands are available.
Yeah.
But it's you resort to bad habits that impact you negatively physically.
Yeah.
And also mentally is the biggest one, because, as you know, when the body starts to drain, when the body starts to struggle, the brain isn't far behind. In fact, the brain's usually leading the way.
Well, it is, but we don't notice it, do we, as much? Because we think, oh, I'm not sleeping very well. Lots of people don't sleep very well. We don't realize the impacts it's having. But that flood of adrenaline and cortisol that constantly goes through your body every time you tell yourself, I've got to work harder, I've got to do more, I'm not doing it right. The impacts on that are huge, absolutely huge.
Yeah. And it really comes from understanding. And that's the one piece of advice I'd say to anybody. If you're struggling right now, And maybe you're struggling at work. Maybe it's external factors that's driving it. But being able to reflect and try and understand and try and document and talk about your performance, where your life is at right now, whatever it is that's bothering you, being able to talk about that is a huge help, because talking to somebody else, as you know, I spoke to you, but talking to somebody else allows you to compartmentalize. Somebody else will help you to break it down, not go down the rabbit hole, and identify a positive path forward. Hopefully, I'd love to think that for anybody watching this, if they are in that situation, that they have a relationship, they can go and talk to their boss or their peers or whoever.
That would be ideal, wouldn't it? That'd be ideal.
But if not, then there are other ways. There are other people out there. As I said, you know, I came to you, but that support, we mustn't be afraid to ask for support, because none of us are perfect, and none of us are, as much as none of us are perfect, none of us are awful.
I think there's very few people that come in with the intent to be awful, but what happens is the environment gets so complicated. I wanted to use the word toxic, but it isn't always. It's complicated, that if you don't have the confidence in yourself to manage the environment and protect your people around you, then it can consume you, and then you become part of the problem with it, because you're consumed by the issue, you're consumed by the environment, which is why having the right level of confidence and emotional intelligence is so important. The higher up you are, the more so. Because, you know, you're having to deflect more.
But it comes back to, are you being supported? I was talking about this this morning with my own team. I was doing some training with one of my teams, and we were talking about managerial support. When you're struggling as a manager, are you getting the right direction? Are you getting the right support from your leaders and your managers? How often are they talking to you? What are you talking about? Do they understand? Do they know how you feel? Do they know that you are stressed? Do they know that you feel overworked? And do they know that you're struggling to understand what your priorities are? And if not, let's talk about it. And that's a really important piece. And again, it was something I learned. I saw a great example of it when I was young. I was doing training with the Navy, and one of the things you do is ships firefighting.
Yeah,
so we were at this base learning how to fight fires on ships, which is truly horrible.
Yeah.
But we'd done one particular activity, and we all come out of the test rig, and one of the instructors starts yelling at this young guy, calling him an idiot. You did this, you did that. You're an idiot. You're nothing but an idiot.
Wow.
And this kid goes, "No, I'm not an idiot. I just did exactly as you told me to do. And if enough instruction to do it properly, that makes you the idiot, not me."
I love it. And I so wish, if I could give anyone any advice watching this, what you said was brilliant, but if your boss or your leader isn't giving you what Alan has just described, the opportunity to say how you feel, to see if you understand where you're going, to understand what sort of support and direction you need, we're talking about situational leadership, then feel free to be brave enough to tell them they're the idiot because you're going off in the wrong direction because they haven't given you clarity.
Because they didn't give you clarity, they didn't give you direction, they didn't give you support. It's something that we are very strong on it and committed to in our company is open, honest, and transparent communication.
Yeah,
and not shooting the messenger. And that's a key thing, because you're never going to solve problems if you're reactive. And again, back to less impactful leaders that I've seen, shoot the messenger.
Shoot the messenger. And I have one final question for you on this is, why do you think they do that? Why do you think, because we can make a big assumption about why leaders will do that. Not just leaders, people at all levels might do it, but why? Why a leader?
Oh, that's easy. Temporarily solves the problem, doesn't it? It's someone else's fault and it temporarily solves a problem.
Solves a problem. So they don't have to take responsibility. What do you think is underneath that? And you know me well enough to know where this is going. What do you
exactly where it's going?
What might be underneath that, Alan?
It's your own lack of confidence, isn't it?
They're scared of something too, because if something went wrong in your business and you weren't scared of getting shot down by whoever's above you, or even if you were, you knew how to manage it, you do this classic curious thing, which is That's fascinating. How did that happen? How can we prevent it from happening again? That to me is a sign of someone who can lead brightly, lead confidently, lead with emotional intelligence and the resilience that employees need from them to thrive.
Yeah, but again, doesn't it come back to, I'll shoot the messenger. That's great. That's solved the problem for now because I'm totally bereft of ideas as to what else to do other than shoot said messenger. And if I'm bereft of ideas what to do, why is that? And I wonder how many of them actually ask that question. Why is that? Because if you've got your team around you, if you've got a good team that you trust, and that's my definition of a good team, do you trust them? Do you trust what you're being told? Do you trust that they provide you with the right inputs for you to make decisions when you have to, provide guidance when you have to? You're never going to be bereft of ideas. There's always somebody's always got an idea somewhere, and that comes back to that communication piece, doesn't it? Bottom one is transparent communication. Don't shoot the messenger, and you can solve the world.
Wow. Let's finish on that. Let's solve the world with transparency and trust. That's a way to go. Alan, thank you so much for joining me on the Lead Brightly podcast today. It's been a pleasure, as always, talking to you, and look forward to working with you some more over the next few years.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity, Sarah. It's been fun.